Good evening. In 1977, my grandfather's family and friends held a dinner in his honor here in New York. A long list of basketball coaches and players spoke at that dinner and recounted my grandfather's accomplishments and touted his contributions to the game of basketball. When my grandfather finally took the podium, his first words were, "Clair Bee, Clair Bee, Clair Bee. I am sick and tired of hearing about Clair Bee." Now, I think we all know there had to have been at least some degree of false modesty in that statement. Obviously, my grandfather was proud of his accomplishments, and he was deeply honored in the twilight of his life, on his last trip to New York City, to be surrounded by friends and family that he had touched during his lifetime. At the same time, though, that comment, "I'm sick and tired of hearing about Clair Bee," rings very true. Even though basketball and Clair Bee were synonymous for a very long time, coaching was never about him as a coach. Coaching basketball was my grandfather's way of giving of himself to the sport and to the players that he loved so dearly. It is in that regard that I believe my grandfather would be more proud of tonight's recognition than any other honor in his career, because this recognition belongs as much or more to his boys than to their coach. I'm certain that my grandfather will be proud tonight and very grateful to LIU for recognizing what was, by all accounts, his favorite team. Now, in that same speech in '77, my grandfather said, "I never wanted to be a great basketball coach. I wanted to be a great teacher." There are two stories in particular with a similar theme to the 1936 Olympic trials boycott that typify the lessons of fairness and dignity and equality that my grandfather taught so very well. In the late 1930s, LIU traveled to an away game in West Virginia. Upon arrival, the hotel manager told my grandfather that the team's white players could stay at the hotel, but that the team's black player, the great Dolly King, would have to stay in the hotel annex. My grandfather, upon hearing the news, simply picked up his bags, turned around, and told the boys to get back on the bus. They were going home. Now, on the way out the door, the team ran into the town mayor, who had come to greet my grandfather. The mayor asked, "Coach, why are you leaving?" My grandfather simply replied, "We all stay together, or none of us stays." "Well, what about the game, Coach?" the mayor asked. "I don't care about the game." In the end, room was found at the hotel for all of LIU's players, and as was so customary in those days, LIU went on to win the game. Nearly a decade later, in 1950, the team's West Coast tour featured a stop in Arizona. Now, the 1950 team featured two black starters, Sherman White and Leroy Smith, and a black reserve player, Raymond Felix. Seated behind the LIU bench at that game was a United States congressman from Arizona. During the game, the congressman kept saying things like, "Clair Bee's just coaching the next Harlem Globetrotters," and he made other similarly offensive remarks. Well, at the end of the team bench, my grandfather always kept a spit bucket so the boys could rinse their mouths during the game. Apparently, that congressman made one comment too many, and without warning, my grandfather charged to the end of the bench, picked up that spit bucket, and headed straight for the congressman. Now, fortunately, before the situation escalated, assistant coach Pick Piccarello stopped my grandfather. But my grandfather sent the message regardless. In the end, the congressman was silenced, and as was so customary in those days, LIU won the game. My grandfather died in 1983, when I was 7 years old. I knew him well as a grandfather, of course, but it is just now that I've begun to know him as a man. And as part of that introduction, I've reached out to a number of his friends and former players to ask their impressions of Clair Bee. They never at first mention the championships or the winning streaks or the contributions to the game. Their initial comments are always much more profound. Hal Uplinger, who played for LIU in 1950 and 51, recently told me, "Michael, I have a higher consciousness of life because of my association with your grandfather." I hope tonight my grandfather realizes just how well he succeeded as a great teacher in his lifetime. That same level of consciousness that my grandfather stirred in so many, we here tonight now owe in return to the men of the 1935-36 Long Island University Blackbirds. I am grateful to their families and to LIU for keeping their memory and the story of their courage alive. The greatest honor we can pay them, however, is to do our best to live our lives as they lived theirs. Thank you all very much. Thank you. I hope you have a great evening.